The security aspect that we have discussed for many episodes relies in software and also awareness. But talking about hardware or systems that are actually in their interface of the city is also a very interesting problem that we need to consider. This is the Hacker's Corner. Hello everybody, welcome back. This is the Hacker's Corner. My name is Servín. I'm a professor here at El Paso Community College, and I'm the host of the Hacker's Corner. Remember that this show has been brought to you by just to create awareness about what is happening in this great world of cyber infrastructure, cyber information, and of course the digital ages. I want to thank everybody who has been sending us their feedback, their comments. Remember that we have a great repository and of pretty great inventory of events there and shows that we've been actually discussing for the past seasons. Please go there, make a comment, and of course share your thoughts and your ideas about the future episodes that you would like us to discuss. So welcome and thank you so much for that great effort. Today we're still in this season of artificial intelligence, but remember that the whole idea of the Hacker's Corner is to create awareness about what is happening in the digital age, but also to create ethical responsibility consciousness about what are the human factors that involves into these cyber threats. And we are in the process of, I guess, intersecting the area of cybersecurity with artificial intelligence. And today we have great guests here from faculty and students from UTEP. We have Dr. Deepak Tosh, who is a professor at the University of Texas in El Paso Computer Science Department. Thank you so much for coming back.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
And would you like to introduce your student?
Yes, so we have Jared Aguayo, who is a master's student in software engineering, but concentration with secure cyber systems. So that's our master student here.
Absolutely, and congratulations, by the way, because I heard that you have one of these great honors to have this scholarship of service. What is the name of this scholarship?
I recently, I've been in it about a year. So 2 semesters ago, I got into the Scholarship for Service program. So it's basically just, they help fund my master's, and after they help fund my master's and everything, then I serve for national security for a portion of time after school.
Wow, that's congratulations, by the way. I think that's something that bridge the education with the real application of the entire education. Something that ideally, and Professor Tosh will agree with me, that this is what we want for the students, but it's a beautiful transition between the education that you receive, the research that you develop, and then you go to this federal agency, like a federal national agency, right? That is supposed to be completely disclosed, and we'll never tell them. But a couple of our students have transitioned from EPCC to the university and then eventually become master's students, and some of them even PhDs, and they serve through this thing. It's a very generous scholarship, and congratulations again for that great achievement, of course, to your professor who has been providing the resources and the guide.
No, it's as an educator, we always look for these talents like Jared, when they are not sure of what to do, we provide them a guideline of, this is something that's probably make a life for you.
Absolutely.
So you just grab the chance and, look for more opportunities to kind of solve real problems in our real life, right?
Something that is outside of the textbooks and
exactly.
the real world.
Exactly.
And that's we're very lucky to have you in the community, and thank you so much for your service in the region. So talk to us a little bit about the research that you've been developing in cybersecurity and secure systems, and also in computing in general. Would you like to share a little bit, and then maybe Jared can talk a little bit?
Sure. So I can actually point out some of the works that I have been doing, especially, and of course I'm getting help from all our students. So Jared is just one of them. Yeah. So again, I started as a faculty of computer science since 2018, and my primary research has been around cybersecurity and how security is important for our critical infrastructures, because we all are becoming slave of multiple smart devices, and the smart devices are making their way into our critical infrastructures too, right? So when you think about critical infrastructure, you name it, like power plants, the refineries, the factories, the manufacturing plants, they are no longer working on manual basis. Rather, there are a lot of smart devices being deployed where we can monitor their processes, monitor how they're operating, whether I am getting my right results or not. But should we not care about whether they are doing something that they are not supposed to do? So that's where our security comes in. Like, we should care about what they are doing, why they are doing, are they doing the right thing or not? How do we make sure that we can enable some sort of provenance that they are doing as per the command is. So if they're deviating, that sort of alerts us and then makes us figure out why there is something like this. So the cybersecurity around that specific industrial control system space is very, very imminent, and that has been my primary focus since that long time.
We have talked in other episodes about like, whoa, encryption. Maybe you should take care about encryption. You're like, oh, make sure you have those specific connectivity there. Don't connect to a Wi-Fi in a coffee shop or things like that. Mostly because it's being controlled by a mobile device, as you mentioned.
Exactly.
Right. But we don't think about the impact in that infrastructure that you meant, the physical infrastructure. Right. As a matter of fact, if you remember, there's a cybersecurity curriculum guidelines, which, by the way, you help us
yes.
to develop some curriculum guidelines, student learning outcomes. Thank you so much for that, by the way. There's one area called physical security. And that is something that many of us, we don't pay attention because we think everything is in the cloud or everything is in your mobile device. But sometimes we don't think like, well, there is a windmill here close to Van Horn, like a set of windmills. We have a refinery here in El Paso as well. There's huge systems that requires a lot of energy.
Correct.
A lot of critical systems, right? That you need someone to be monitoring it constantly. And I think it's a very important aspect that we need to pay attention. Is this what Jared is doing? Something similar?
So, same thing. How it's important to kind of secure these systems because it could affect people's lives besides it being an inconvenience, right? So, like for power-wise, if a power plant is infiltrated, that's power that people won't be able to use. If chemicals are changed in water treatment plants, that can affect thousands, millions of people. Oil refineries, it can be very dangerous, combustible things everywhere. If you mess with certain temperatures, certain additives, who knows the outcomes, So basically what we're working on is using 5G. So 5G has been very prevalent. Everyone pretty much has 5G now with their cell phones and everything. So what we want to do is, since these systems need to be available at all times, so we don't want people without power, we don't want people with clean water, we need these systems up all the time. That's the main importance of these systems. We want to make sure that we can implement something to develop more security on it without affecting that initial process. So what we're doing is we want to overlay 5G on the network. So we want to do basically having what's in your cell phone, like a SIM card, basically having those in two different devices, and they can communicate with each other now, right, through over 5G. So what we want is on these field devices that would move traffic about, usually speaking about how the process is doing, what the temperature is like, maybe a water level here or something like that in a certain process. They also need to communicate how they're doing themselves, the device's health themselves. So how they're doing, they could tell maybe if they maybe need to be something, a part is failing or is getting towards end of life. You could prepare for that and swap that part out before something goes wrong, and then you have to deal with the non-availability aspect. Also, the same thing is the device acting maliciously? Is there weird behavior this device is doing? Well, we have that device communicating that over 5G, so we can stay on top of what that device's health is like. So, 5G offers its own perks of encryption. So a lot of some of the protocols, which is how the devices communicate, originally were created without security in mind. So if we're able to move that traffic securely, we can know a lot more about our devices and make sure that we can keep as secure as possible at that level.
And of course, like this project has been funded by the Department of Energy, and the main idea behind this project was to how do we make sure that we have the clear idea of whether a component in a physical layer or physical place is actually depleting or it's going to fail in like 15 months or so. So if we know those ahead, then we can actually create a plan of figuring maintenance, or we can actually replace some of them so that the overall cost should not be much higher when it goes down. So again, there are a lot of internal processes, internal communication happens where they let everybody know about what am I doing, but nobody cares about whether you are doing okay or not. Your heartbeat is actually beating in proper bit rate. So that is a communication that we want to make sure to allow through the 5G backbone. And since the 5G has been more of an open source standard, and anyone actually can use a standalone 5G network to kind of communicate with all other user equipment. So why not we can actually leverage 5G to kind of share this information over a different network backbone.
You mentioned, I think this is great because I have seen the transition between these technologies. For example, 5G a couple of years ago was kind of like, this is emerging, everybody should pay attention on this. And now there is some APIs, I'm pretty sure there's open source that people can start generating certain software. And we have talked in this show about the ability to have that, for example, when we talk about OpenAI, and there's some other tools that you can do that thing. Department of Energy seems to be more and more interested in the work that computing is asking, not that they haven't done in the past, but because of the power of supercomputers, now quantum computers, by the way, it's a different conversation, all these industrial systems, you mentioned something that caught my attention, you can predict.
Correct.
Work can happen in 2, 5 years, 10 years.
Correct.
And then you can start planning on that, which makes more like an intelligent system that is happening. And I think that is the key point, because in the past we didn't have a recompilation of data that how things behave. Now we do. Yeah. And now we can predict, and we would like to save not only energy, but also save the planet, we're obviously in a moments of time when we need to take care of resources. And there is not only the responsibility as a software engineer that we said, but you are a problem solver. You're solving problems securely, of course, but also with the conscious about what is the impact that we're having in society. Are we all agreeing that?
No, absolutely.
And that's where most of this futuristic technology is happening, and it's actually getting encouraged by this Department of Energy, Department of, you call it. How can you see that happening in there? So you mentioned something that caught my attention. The most secure way to do it is just let's disconnect everything. It will be super secure, but that's not the whole point. We want them to keep playing.
Correct.
To keep actually like service in water, utilities and whatnot. What is the impact of your research into trying to solve this problem in general, to have this between secure system and also help the society and humanity to keep them balanced?
Being able to keep these systems as secure as possible leads to people being able to have access to these resources. In order to make processes especially more efficient, usually means you have to introduce new technologies, and those technologies, like you said, are usually connected to the internet, or they have some interconnectivity like they did in the past. So these systems in the past were disconnected, and that's why they were kind of secure based off the fact that they weren't connected to anything. So that's why when I mentioned how some of the protocols that they communicate were developed insecurely, it's because they didn't need to be secure because no one had access to them anyway. Mm-hmm. But since digital age moves very fast and things need to be introduced quickly to make things more efficient, more available, these new components were introduced, and we can allow more availability, more efficient processes, and we want to make sure to have everything as efficient as possible because, as you said, resource constraints are a real thing. And securing these components, it gives more confidence. It gives more confidence in what's in these components to make these industrial control systems more efficient, more available. Because when you start introducing insecure things, maybe certain industries may start shying away from improving, and they stay in these ages of very insecure protocols, very insecure infrastructure, and inefficient infrastructure and stuff like that. Yeah.
One of my colleagues, we developed research in the past with industrials. Well, it was more a simulation, and you have her student, Mr. Rodilis, right? And we were focusing on SCADA systems. And when Professor Karichev mentioned that one of the areas right now that was happening, it was someone hack windmills, right? So the windmills, the whole idea of windmills to help to protect the environment. We use the power of wind in order to generate energy. Everything will be fine. But it turns out that a couple of years ago, probably not too much, a couple of years, it was hacked. And it was exactly addressing what you mentioned. I mean, they were intended to serve for a purpose, but the security component was completely isolated. Now they recognize it's a powerful technology or instrument or a system, an industrial system. Let's do what this happened. And that's how they were infiltrated, and they were actually using that power in order to generate atoms.
Right.
In the past, there has been attacks to supercomputers, right? And the supercomputers, you say, well, there's some supercomputers that they're focusing, for example, climate prediction.
Correct.
Nobody cares about those things, but they're powerful. You can predict the weather for the next maybe 1-2 months, but if you have access to those cores, to that thing, you can do other things.
Exactly.
Can you give us an example about what kind of
No, I mean, that's a very good point. Like, for example, these supercomputers are actually just not doing a lot of this computation, but these computations are actually impacting a lot of our societies, right? So let's say every day we come to like office, you actually see, well, what is the wind speed today? You know, so, or what is the weather today? So should I wear a coat, or, I just go for a simple way, right?
Right.
So how do you so it's, you see the real implication of a supercomputer, predicting the weather kind of impacts a lot of our society. So similarly, when we think about our industrial control system, a lot of this, when I say prediction of some component is getting failed, how are you going to do it? We have to use some sort of intelligence, like, for example, a machine learning or some kind of artificial intelligence models around it. And when somebody says, the data from where you are learning this model is not really a reliable data, that means you are actually learning on wrong things. For example, as teacher, we always care about whether we are teaching the right thing or not, right?
Correct.
So if we were teaching wrong things to our students, of course, the students will be, getting a lot of failures down the road, so which we do not want. So similarly, all these machine learning models that are running on the large high-performance computing systems, maintaining sanity about what are you making them learn and what computation that they're actually doing, they have to be reliable enough so that the result that is generated, that can be also reliable down the road. So it's a problem in all sides, not just on the device and the physical layer, but also on the computation side also. So that has to be always kept in mind.
So you mentioned you conjugate everything very nicely: machine learning, high performance computing, computation in general, society. So how do you see that thing happening right now? For example, the intelligent aspects, because we have spoke in the past about machine learning and how the systems learn on good things, but also they'll learn bad things.
Correct.
And that's how actually the systems start to pure itself. Can you expand a little bit more about how does that apply to that system?
So it has almost like implications to everybody, everywhere. I would say spatially as well as temporally too.
Sure.
So since like we as as end users, we are doing a lot of cyber related activities. For example, you are tapping onto your phone, you're generating data that is probably going to internet. Somebody is learning the behavior of what are you doing, right? So that means, so a lot of private data is actually going out of your hand. Probably someone is actually watching over it and learning of your activities, learning about your behavioral pattern. And maybe those computations are happening in a secluded server, like a high performance computing scene.
What is high performance computing, real quick?
So mostly when you think about learning on let's say a bunch of data, like how this data look like, is it like, it is actually following a linear pattern, or it is following some kind of like a square pattern, right? So you actually kind of extract patterns from data, right?
Right.
As humans, we're not good at numbers, right? We're always good at names.
Sure.
So somebody has to do this sort of mapping between like data to some kind of relationship, right? Who is going to do this? Some kind of computing machine is going to do it. So when you are doing it like, 5,000 distinct data points, maybe my phone can actually do it. When you think about 5 terabytes of data to do, my computer may not be able to do. So someone has to be really powerful enough to kind of do this computation. So that's where our HPC, or the high performance computing facilities, come in place. They actually feed tons of data, and they learn how to kind of make concluding remarks of what this data is actually behaving.
I see. And all these industrial systems, they generate terabytes of data per day.
Exactly.
And it's impossible as a human to process it. That's why you send to these HPCs, high performance computers, to perform that thing.
Exactly.
And that's how you feed those machines.
Right.
That's a great explanation.
No, absolutely.
Thank you so much for explaining. Actually, now that you mentioned that part, because you have shared with me that you're interested to work with our students.
Absolutely.
Right. You say like there's some talent at El Paso Community College. We would like to bring it on board. Can you tell us a little bit about the projects that you have on mind, if it's not too much to ask, or you can, very general about the work that you do, because some of our students, they go to UTEP. Some of them, they go to NMSU. Some of them, they go outside. But the majority of our students, they go specifically because you're attractive research areas. Can you tell us more or less the research areas that you work? So maybe our students are like, I would like to go and contact Dr. Tosh for this.
No, absolutely. So anyone who would really want to explore on the security of this critical infrastructure and maybe how the networking between different points of a critical infrastructure happens, or in the networking aspect, what are the protocols that you might actually design, or how do you make the protocol even secure? Can you even find flaws in network protocols, or like how different these protocols actually change from infrastructure technology, like our internet, and when you move it to like some kind of industrial control system. So the same protocol doesn't translate that easily. So there has to be a lot of transformation need to be done, and sometimes during the transformation you lose the security aspect. So now it's a fun place when you see that computers are actually talking to each other through some form. Of course, like whenever we talk to each other, we actually unknowingly follow some kind of format. Similarly, our computers actually do that. So learning about this and understanding what are the things they are talking, how they are talking, and how can I make it more better, more performance worthy, so that we can scale it up, we can create it more adaptable type of situation for a lot of our industrial operators, or those small niches where like the technology is kind of getting translated into the real practice. That makes a lot of impactful work, and we will really love to see a lot of the students getting interested in this specific cybersecurity and the system security arena, because that's where we're losing a lot of our workforce, and we would really like to elevate and get more workforce in this particular space.
One of the objectives that as a EPCC has, or any community colleges, is that we want to feed that workforce. And I think it seems to be because in the region there are some industrial systems. Right, I'm pretty sure you work with a couple of those partnerships, maybe.
So we have not created like a formal partnership, but at least we have been in touch with some folks from El Paso Electric, some folks from Snyder.
Sure.
And I mean, there are a lot of potential to go after some other, stakeholders.
And the good thing about research is that you don't have to wait until that happens. You're
Exactly.
already creating possible solutions. So
Right.
when the problem, and hopefully not, right? But hopefully, when something happens, don't
Right.
worry. We've been working in this for the past years.
Absolutely.
Give it a shot.
Absolutely.
And we want to keep them, of course, locally. We want to keep everybody
Exactly.
here
Exactly.
and grow our community. So you mentioned that UTEP, and by the way, El Paso Community College is a center for academic of excellence in cybersecurity,
Correct.
cyber defense,
Correct.
and also UTEP. But also you were talking to me about that you're the point of contact for this program, by the way. And can you tell us about the different programs that you have in your?
Sure. So we do have a curriculum that is based on the NSA designated Center of Academic Excellence.
NSA, you said?
Yeah, NSA, so National Security Agency.
NSA.
So NSA, which is basically a broad umbrella of the whole nation on making the security
national,
you know,
Homeland Security
exactly.
as well, right? Yeah.
So our security education also need to be compliant with our national needs, right? So the NSA is actually looking over all the aspects on that note. So at least our education has been designated by NSA from cyber defense point of view as well as cyber operation point of view. So cyber defense education, where we give initial understanding about more cybersecurity related topics, but cyber operation is actually more deeper.
Yeah.
So when you think about operations in many different sectors, how do you make sure that you can maintain the enough security level in those operation stuff? So that curriculum is also in place. So we are also moving towards creating a cybersecurity, Center of Academic Excellence in cyber research. So that is another avenue which will also make sure that our research that we are doing here is also nationally recognized.
And I'm part of the NICE framework, which is the National Institute for Cyber Education Practices. I'm missing something. Cyber education. So they have work roles, and so 52 to be more specific, because I was doing the program of study. Those roles, I have seen how they've been spread across the nation, and they're highly recommend that institutions they address it. And having those three different accreditation items, it will make it very attractive.
Exactly.
And this is a great partnership, by the way, between EPCC and UTEP, because we can transition the students with that mentality of the workforce.
Right.
I want to thank both of you for your time, for your effort, and congratulations again for the great work that you've been doing in the region, professionally, in the research aspects. And I'm hopefully to see you back again in our show. Any comments, discussions, final thoughts?
So just one final thought. Maybe it's something that I'm really passionate about. I just want to add before I complete my discussion. So we are not just doing a lot of research. We are also emphasizing a lot of educations too. So we are currently running a research experience for our teachers.
Wow.
So RET, it has been funded by our National Science Foundation. So the program attracts annually 10 teachers from our school districts, generally from Midland High School, who are interested in teaching STEM-related courses, science, computer science, any cybersecurity-related topics. They are free to join us over the summer, where they will get trained by our faculty mentors on some cyber research topics, which will eventually translated into some kind of curricular module that will be delivered to our students, like to the high school and middle school students.
So it's a great impact to engage the ISDs, community college teachers, into say, you know what, there's a way to disseminate this in the classroom.
Correct.
So I think this is a great vehicle on that.
Correct.
Thank you so much for sharing that, and good luck on that as well.
Thank you so much.
I want to thank Jared, I want to Professor Tosh here for your time, effort, and congratulations again. I hope to see everybody back again next time. Happy coding meanwhile. See you next time.